Hello P6. For today's maths activities, we're going to begin for our mental maths challenge with what's called a magic square. Now, magic squares are really special because in a magic square, every row, every column and every diagonal has to add up to exactly the same amount. So if I look at grid A, I'm trying to fill in the missing numbers so that every row, every column, every diagonal adds up to the same total. Now, at the minute, I can see a diagonal and I've got 8, 6, add 4. So the easiest way for me to add that, I would probably do 6 add 4 is 10, add 8. So I know that every row, column and diagonal in this magic square has to add up to 18. I'm going to use that information then to help me fill in the missing numbers. So if I've got on this row, I've got 8 add 9. Well, 8 add 9 is 17. How much more do I still need to add to make 18? I need to add 1. Wonder what would go in here. 3 add 4 is 7. How much more to make 18? Yep, that's going to be 11, isn't it? Now I can check because look, 1 add 6 is 7, add 11. Does that make 18? Yes, it does. What are the other two missing numbers? Can you work out that one? 8 add 3, add how much more makes 18? Well, 8 add 3 is 11, so 7 more needs to go in there. What's the final missing number? Well, I could do it going across, so I could do 7 add 6. 7 add 6 is 13. 13 add what makes 18? Yeah, I've got a final missing number there of 5. And I can prove it to myself. 9 add 5 is 14, add 4 more makes 18. And if I was to look at my diagonals, they would both also add up to 18. So in a magic square, what we're trying to do is find out the total for the magic square for every row, for every column and for every diagonal. I suggest you write it at the top and then use that information to help you fill in the missing numbers. Now, for our main activity today, we're going to think again about direction. And yesterday we were thinking about the compass and we were thinking about the different points in the compass. And we were looking at our compass rose and we looked at north and south, west and east, and we looked at the points that come in between them. And yesterday we practiced turning to face those different directions. Now, something we learnt way back towards the start of P6, and we learnt in P5 as well actually, was that a full turn is 360 degrees. So if I was to start anywhere on my compass and go the whole way round, that whole turn is the equivalent of 360 degrees. So if I started at north and I went the whole way round back to north again, I would have turned 360 degrees. If I started at southeast and I went the whole way round and back to southeast, then that's also 360 degrees. We don't always have to start at north. Now, let's think about the direction we're turning in as we go around the compass. If we're going this way around the compass, can you think of a word that means to go in that direction? To go in a circle like the hands of a clock? Well, that's clockwise, isn't it? So if we're going clockwise, the same way the hands on a clock are going, that's clockwise. What do we call it if we're going the other way? Yeah, it's anti-clockwise, isn't it? So if I was to go the other way around the clock, then that would be the equivalent of turning anti-clockwise. Now, today we're going to think about the angles that we see on our compass rose. Because if we know that a full turn is 360 degrees, well, I want to work out how far it is if I go from north round to northeast. Now, on my compass, there are 8 different points. So if I was to take my 360 and divide it by 8, well, 360 divided by 8 is 45 degrees. Every step that I take on the compass is equivalent to 45 degrees. So if I took one step on the compass, I would have turned 45 degrees. If I took a second step, I would have turned another 45 degrees. So that would be 90 degrees altogether. If I took another step, that would be another 45. So 90 add 45 adds up to 135 degrees. If I took another step, I'd have gone halfway round by now. And one of the things we talked about last term was if we go halfway around, then if we do a half turn, that's 180 degrees. I can keep counting in my 45, so if I went another 45 degrees, 180 add 45 is 225 degrees. If I kept going, I would have turned 270 degrees. Another 45 degrees, that would be 315 degrees. And then right back to the start. If I go the whole way around, I've turned 360 degrees. But that's assuming that I'm starting at north and I'm going clockwise around. So what's really important today is that we think about each of those steps. If I'm looking at the 8-point compass, if I go one step, I've gone 45 degrees. If I went 2 steps, that's 90. If I go 3, that's 135 degrees. 4 steps is 180 degrees. 5 would be 225. 6 would be 270. 7 steps would be the same as 315 degrees. And if I went the whole way round, then that's the same as going 360 degrees. So if I was to start in a different place, so what if I started at south and I wanted to go around clockwise round to west? Well, if I start at south and I go round to west, I'm going 1, 2 steps. So south to west, I'm taking 2 steps around my compass, and 2 steps is the equivalent of 90 degrees. What if I started at northeast and I wanted to go anti-clockwise around to west? So northeast going anti-clockwise to west. Well, if I start at northeast, 1 step will take me to north, 2 steps will take me to northwest, 3 steps will take me round to west. So if I went 1, 2, 3 steps, that means I have turned 135 degrees anti-clockwise. I'm going the other way around my compass rose. Here's a question for you. What if I started at west and I wanted to go all the way round to southeast, going clockwise? So I start at west and going clockwise round to southeast. So let's think how many steps that would be. Starting at west, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. From west to southeast, going clockwise, that's going to be 225 degrees. Now P6, for your activities today, you're going to begin by going to Education City. And the first thing I want you to do when you go into Education City is today I want you to have a look at an activity called Who Do You Think You Are? It's in our homework folder for this week, and this question involves you following directions of turn, including making some right angles. Once you've had a go at that, then I would like you to choose your activity for today. If you choose the higher level activity, then for your activity today, you're going to be looking at these 2 pages. The first thing you're going to do is think, just like we were doing there, about counting in groups of 45. And then you're going to see if you can use this weather machine that has also been divided into 8 points. They're not the points of the compass, but again, it's been divided into 8 sections. If you start with the arrow pointing at fair and you turn clockwise or anti-clockwise, can you work out where you will now be pointing? At the bottom of the page, can you work out how many degrees and in which direction you're turning if you're going to turn to find these points? At the top of the second page, You have to imagine that you are a young man called Hamish and you're sitting on this factory ship in the centre of a circle of different fishing boats, and you have to see which boat you would be looking at if you look north, if you look west, northwest, and so on. You're going to practice some turning, clockwise and anti-clockwise. And for your final challenge today, you're going to see if you can work out if Hamish starts looking in a certain place and then does a turn, where he will end up facing. That's the higher level challenge for today. If you choose the lower level challenge, then for your challenge today, you're also thinking about turning in degrees. So can you work out the size of each of these angles? Now, some of them are in right angles, so they're 90 degrees. Some of them we've divided it up into 8 parts, so those are the 45-degree turns. Can you work out the size of each of these angles? In the second part, if you're facing north and you turn clockwise 135 degrees or 360 degrees, and so on, where will you end up facing? For your second page, can you work out the size of the degrees if you do each of these turns? And finally, you've got another compass rose. Can you work out how big the angle is if you turn from clockwise, from north to northeast, if you went anti-clockwise, from south to east? Now, P6, to help you out today, definitely you can write on these pages, but I think it would be a really good idea if on a piece of paper you drew out a big compass rose and you wrote this information down. I think that would really help you out for today. Okay? Have fun. Do your very best.